I had so many people from treasury companies on, and I've never invested. And there's part of me that is like, I could have made so many more gains with like when I see some of the stocks and all of that. But I always think about, I went into Bitcoin to go out of the stock investing game because I came from stock investing, and I'm very happy that I'm no longer in this game, and I know all the risks and the things associated with stock investing, and I purposely went out of that, and so I no longer want into this game, even if there's more return, because I want to be saving in Bitcoin and not something else.
They turned out to not be more return, right? They turned out to be and I hate to say it because I think it's the temptation, like, I hate to say these turned out to be the shit coins of the cycle, but they turned out to be the shit coins of the cycle. Especially everyone who came after strategy. They pumped and they dumped, and they dumped hard. They dumped like to points where even the, pipe investors didn't see a return, and the retail investors all got very severely damaged. And the temptation here was, the closer, always these, during these cycles, these pump and dumps, shit coins, whatever term you want to use, the lures away from Bitcoin try to cozy up to Bitcoin. Like we're like Bitcoin, but better, and that was always the claim of all the altcoins, right? Oh, look, we got faster block times or bigger blocks or Turing complete programmability. That was the 2017 cycle. And then this most recent cycle was, we got Bitcoin, trust us. Like we're investing in Bitcoin, and our Bitcoin is worth more and your Bitcoin is worth more in our hands than it is in yours. We have these MNAV multiples. And what's the rationale? I mean, Michael Saylor paints a rationale that I think justifies 1.5 to 2 times MNAV at various points in time because he's actually generating yield. But these other things were claiming that the market's so inefficient that they were worth 5, 10, 15 times their Bitcoin without even doing any of the interesting financial engineering that increased the Bitcoin per share metric. So they were just counting on people, paying huge prices for notional indirect ownership of Bitcoin. And lo and behold, the market became a weighing machine after it was a popularity machine. And you could see, right? It was like, I actually don't think that there was that much dishonesty that went into this. I think there was naivete, but it was ego-driven naivete, right? It was like, I as an influencer, and I'm so influential that if you put your money in with the company that I'm a spokesperson for, it'll be worth more than it would be in your own self-custody. And there's a harsh but valuable lesson to be learned there, both by people who follow the influencers, and a reality check, an ego check, a humility check for the influencers who were pushing these things.
It's another comparison with altcoins, because those were the most successful altcoins were those with the biggest influencers behind them.
Yeah.
And the same thing
what does
all
KOL
over again.
stand for? I keep getting invitations in my DMs to be a key something leader, right? Like, but it's all influencers that these people are looking for. They're, to create what ultimately becomes, I don't even want to say what their intention is, but they create what ultimately becomes a pump and dump, because the enthusiasm comes in with people trusting these leaders, but then the reality weighs in, which is enthusiasm isn't value, right? And you need a business model by which you're going to create value if you're going to justify some value that's higher than the money that you take in. And so I just think that people got ahead of themselves. I think there's a lot of things, and we can explore any particular avenues you want, but there was, like, I actually don't think most of the influencers pushing the treasury companies thought anything other than the best outcome would play out. But it turned out to be a really, really bad outcome. And so how and why were they so detached from reality? Well, it was their egos. They thought their egos were actually the value here rather than the Bitcoin. And I mean, it's an easy trap to fall into. especially after you've been in a bull market for a number of years and you've been pumping the stock. So you confuse the correlation. You've been pumping Bitcoin and it's gone up. So you've confused the correlation of your influence with the price. And it's like, well, the price was going up anyways, and you were doing influential stuff and getting applause in the meantime, but it wasn't going up because of you. And, you know, when you move to something else, it did move up on other people thinking it was you, but then it crashed down to its fundamental value, which was these like one time or less than one time MNAVs for these companies, and 95% declines in their stock price.
I think it's very natural that a company can only survive with a business model. And I think solely buying Bitcoin is not a good enough business model, because Bitcoin is money and not like.
Well, when you can do it, when I, as an individual, can do it myself and get more benefits from doing it myself than some big company doing it on my behalf, then it's a bad business model, you know, right? And so like the trade-off, of course, if I do it myself, I have complete control over the funds. I can spend any of them whenever I want. They are Bitcoin. I can send them peer-to-peer. I can take them anywhere in the world. They can't be seized. Like all the list of reasons why. I can verify their existence. I can trade them 24/7, 365. If I buy stock in a company that's holding Bitcoin, well, I don't have control over the Bitcoin itself. I can't send it. I can't pay anybody with it. I don't have 24/7 access to it. It's not unseizable. It's regulated. It has overhead. It has holding costs. It has all of these things. And so they need to have something else going on that truly adds value. And like, I don't want to take away from what strategy has done and what Michael Saylor has figured out of the issuing various forms of debt or preferred equity that actually increase the Bitcoin per share. And so the market is getting precise on what exactly that premium is and that value is, and that there is a premium rather than a discount for it. But I think a lot of these other treasury companies just thought they could rinse and repeat, and they didn't have the ideas, they didn't have the capital, they didn't have the sense of timing or innovation that strategy did. And so they weren't able, like Michael Saylor came and he squeezed out as much money as was available in the convertible bond market. So that strategy wasn't available to people who came afterwards. And then he squeezed out in all of these different preferred offerings the demand in the market for those. And so when someone comes with a smaller version of it and wants to do the same thing that's already been done and either succeeded or been squeezed to its last drop of value, that opportunity isn't there for them.
For me, this all is kind of just a medium term kind of a hybrid thing where the TradFi is getting Bitcoinized in a way. Do you think this is now like a medium thing, and like what comes after that? Like what's next that companies are kind of getting into Bitcoin? I mean, obviously it is a good thing that companies are putting, instead of dollars, Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but that all those like weird treasury companies came out of that.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly, what phase we're in and what's going to be the outcome of it. I think what we've seen in every previous cycle is Bitcoin starts to gain a whole bunch of momentum and excitement, and then all these Me Too players come in. They dilute the message. They draw in investors. They burst. They take Bitcoin down a little bit with them, and then the healing begins again. And then there's a new season. And that new season, begins with Bitcoin gradually building up and up and up and up again. And then the new breed of imitators who say Me Too show up. It's kind of hard to predict exactly what they are, but they look genuine to a lot of people. Like the altcoins with all this different functionality look genuine to a lot of people. The NFTs look genuine to a lot of people. The treasury companies look genuine to a lot of people. I think you had to be really educated and understanding of what Bitcoin is, why it was created, and how it works in order to really be able to differentiate between these things. And I think that's where, for some of us, yourself included, you could see that something wasn't clicking. This wasn't better than Bitcoin. And, you don't have to invest in everything. So maybe you'll miss something, maybe you won't, but you stay invested in what you understand. And I think that's just a journey. That's why we see these cycles. It's like every time someone tests, well, what is Bitcoin? Is it really good money, or is it just an investment that anyone can knock off by doing a whole bunch of other different things? And so we'll likely see more and more of these cycles still repeat. They don't have to be 4 years in length. I know there's a bunch of people who try to talk about what the length of it is, but the halving itself is an event that gets people's attention because suddenly there's less Bitcoin being created and being issued, and the demand stops it up. It takes a while for it to happen, but it's a newsworthy item. It's an attention-getting item. It has an impact. So I'll be really curious to see what the next year or two bring for Bitcoin and its relationship with Wall Street, and also its relationship with the U.S. Capitol, because there's a lot going on in regulatory markets, and that's a cycle that tends to coincide with the president election cycle, tends to coincide with the years of the halvings as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on the go. But I don't know that I need to restate it, but it's like Bitcoin remains unchanged. Bitcoin's true and fundamental value proposition, which is auditable, scarce, seizure resistant, permissionless, censorship resistant, finite money that anyone in the world can use and participate in without having to seek a license or be in a particular geography. It's still there, right? And it's still untouchable. And and the more and more that people try to knock it off, the more unique it clearly becomes. It's like you can't imitate it with an altcoin. You can't imitate it with a JPEG. You can't imitate it with a treasury company that holds onto it. You can't imitate it even with an ETF. All you can imitate is tracking its value as measured in dollars, and only the ETF can really do that. And it's hard to beat in the long run. So it's I think this will continue to be the pattern that we see. I'll try not to repeat myself too much because I feel like I already have.
No, it's very natural, and it's interesting because I always look at I'm a very hopeful optimist always in every situation, and I always look at what's the best thing out of something. And so the treasury companies, I see the best thing out of them. I'm talking specifically about the treasury companies that don't have operating profitable business. Like obviously, if you have a operating profitable business and you just buy Bitcoin with the exceed cash, like go ahead, do that. I'm talking about the ones that don't have operating.
Yeah, the ones whose value proposition is we'll create a security because we will.
Exactly. And those, I'm like, okay, they kind of seem to get the altcoin speculators now into kind of a Bitcoin ecosystem. It's for me not really better or worse or anything like that. It's just like I see a lot of the people that in previous cycle talked about NFTs and talked about altcoins and shitcoins and all of that now are all of a sudden like into treasury companies. It's interesting. The speculators kind of came more directly into Bitcoin, but not completely into Bitcoin yet.
That's interesting. I'm not sure that I've seen that. Is it more the influencers have done that, or that the speculators? Because I think a lot of the speculators get wiped out in every one of these cycles, right? They buy a whole lot of some shitcoin, or they buy a whole lot of some NFT, or they buy a whole lot of some treasury company, and they don't have money left over for the next cycle. The people who obviously did get out in time and have money for the next cycle are the creators of these cycles, right? They're the ones who create the altcoins and dump before the dump, right? They dump during the pump. And I don't know if it's the same cast of characters or not as has been here in the past. It might be slightly different characters. There's not like one thing that's interesting is there haven't been that many of these treasury companies. It wasn't like there was trillions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars in treasury company valuations that went down. They didn't get that far, interestingly, before the stock market dealt them a lesson, right? It was like several months. Maybe Metaplanet was a fair bit longer, but Nakamoto didn't last all that long, and I'm not even remembering the names of them all. Semler Scientific, struggled to get something, but like they didn't have the kind of success that Strategy had. Strategy with a very long-term play and weathered a downturn and all these other things. So, I mean, I don't provide financial advice, but I'm certainly a skeptic about everything that isn't Bitcoin and is trying to say, I'm like Bitcoin, and even worse, I'm better than Bitcoin, right? These I'm better than Bitcoin stories don't have a lot of endurance to them. I put it that way, right? They're here today, gone tomorrow, or here this year, gone next year. They're not built to last for forever. They're actually, they're built with a pump in mind, right? Let's get all the influencers, let's get some marketing, let's get some promotion, and people come in. But without sustained, endless promotion, they end up being like Ponzi schemes in many cases. I don't mean illegal in the sense, but it's like they need new people to keep coming in. They don't hold their own value.
One thing you also touched on, I want to just briefly mention, because so many people are interested in that, because we are now at the end of this 4-year cycle that may or may not break. It feels like people are really like in a bear market. It's really weird for me to witness, because we are up on like the year to date, we are up the last 12 months, like on every kind of like scale, like we are up like the 5 years, I think we are up 7x or something like that. So it's kind of weird to say that we're in a bear market, but it almost feels like the sentiment is kind of like we're in a bear market.
Yeah. Like people forget what a year ago the price was, or what 2 years ago the price was, or what we've been through. They know, we've been hovering in the 100 to 118 range for a really, really, really long time. And so it's a crab market, but maybe we're in the lower end of that. So is that what we define as a bear market? And in the meantime, other investments independent of Bitcoin are running and hitting all-time highs. You've got the artificial intelligence boom, and the NASDAQ is at record highs, I hear. So I think people are feeling like they're not keeping up. And this is, again, the mentality that it's the fiat mentality creeping back in. And that's what creates the danger for people to lose their Bitcoin when they say, okay, I'm going to trade my Bitcoin for something else, some magic beans, some company valued at 600 times earning EBITDA, but I believe on its way up. And why? Well, for reasons that stock promoters on television are saying, rather than from having done a fundamental analysis of what needs to be true for this valuation to be justified. And especially when you're investing in companies, like the stock market does become a weighing machine eventually. And if you don't know how to analyze stocks and you don't know how they're valued, just trading on momentum or popularity needs to be a very active job. And you can't fall for the big narrative, and you can't time the market perfectly. Like you need to get out before bubble. If you're chasing bubbles, you need to get out before they pop. And I don't have any advice on how to do that. I just know I don't want to touch it myself with a 10-foot pole, because I got better things to do with my life than what essentially amounts to gambling against other people.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them, because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a one 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.